What's up, everyone? Coach Tony from Bonvex Strength, and today I'm going to talk about the importance of building momentum in your training. Momentum, like an object in motion, stays in motion, and momentum in your training is one of the most important things that you can build and then try to ride out so you can kind of stretch out these long periods of training success. And when you string together a lot of those training periods where you have a lot of momentum, that can really make your progress grow exponentially, as opposed to a lot of like stopping and starting, running into plateaus. So I'll talk about a couple of ways that you can build up momentum in your training. The first of which I think is super simple, and a lot of people mess this step up, but it's to start too easy. Way too often when people start strength training for the first time, or maybe you've been strength training for a long time and you're starting a new training block, maybe you're a seasoned power lifter and you're just coming off of a meet, and you dive back into training and you just go way too hard, too fast. You start too heavy, you start with too much volume, you start with too many training sessions per week, and it may feel good for a little bit when your motivation is high, but if motivation starts to wane, as it often does for all of us, or if you run into roadblocks such as changes in your work schedule, outside the gym responsibilities, overuse injuries, stuff like that, and that motivation starts to decrease because of those things, then what are you going to do? There's no way to continue to push the stimulus because you're going to have to back off so much. However, if you start with less, you're going to be able to add gradually and build up that momentum. Start with a little, crush the little bit that you're doing, using less weight, using less volume, perhaps fewer training sessions per week, and then build on that once you know that you're ready to take on more. The thing about starting a new training block is that you're the most sensitive to the stimulus that you're about to apply that you're ever going to be. If you're a brand new trainee, it takes hardly any weight. It takes very, very light weights to make strength increases. If you're somebody who's more seasoned, but say you're shifting from a heavier training block into a hypertrophy block with the goal of trying to build some muscle, your body's going to be very, very sensitive to lower amounts of volume. So it would be absolutely stupid to jump in with, say, 4, 5, 6 sets per exercise per training session when just 2 or 3 will do at the beginning. Hypertrophy is very driven by volume, so start with less so you can add more over time. If you feel like you can train 4, 5, 6 days a week, maybe start with 3 and see how you do there, and then build upon that as you go along. So don't make the mistake of jumping in too hard, too heavy, too much at the beginning. Start with less so you can build up that momentum. The next thing that you can do is not back off the throttle when you're doing really, really well. There's a saying that you got to cook when the skillet is hot. And in a lot of kind of pre-designed training programs, a lot of popular training systems out there, there are deloads at predetermined periods. And I think for a lot of people, this is a great way to go. It's definitely the safe route. A lot of programs use a deload every 4th week if you train 4 days a week. I like to kind of use the rule of like 12 hard workouts before you take a deload week, 3 or 4 easy training sessions in a row. And that's great. But if you're absolutely crushing it and you feel good and you've got the momentum going and you're able to add weight to the bar week over week, lifts feel great, you're getting stronger, keep your foot on the gas. Keep going. Don't back off just because, it's the 4th week, so I got to take a deload. And this is something that we've learned getting people ready for powerlifting meets, because one of the biggest mistakes I've made as a coach is like, okay, this is a regular interval where I start to deload relatively close to a meet. You break up that good training momentum, you break up kind of that hot streak, and sometimes it can be hard for a lifter to pick it back up again. So I know a lot of lifters who say that they actually take like more than a week to bounce back from a deload. So say you train hard for 3 weeks in a row, making a ton of progress. Okay, we take a deload week because that's traditionally what we do. The 5th week, the week after the deload, a lot of lifters I coach don't feel at their best. They might feel refreshed in the sense that like fatigue has dropped a good amount, but they've lost some of their maybe technical ability. Maybe they feel a little bit rusty. So there's just no need to always deload on a regular basis, especially if things are cooking. If you're absolutely kicking ass in the gym and you feel like you can keep going, push it. Ride the momentum out. Don't deload just because, so-and-so program says that you're supposed to deload at this regular interval. All right, and the last way that I think you can really build a lot of momentum is to make sure that there's something within your program that repeats on a regular basis, most notably a weekly basis, so you can kind of measure and manage your progress. Pretty simple way to think about it is, okay, if I'm going to squat, bench, and deadlift within my training program, I'm going to do those at least once a week, maybe twice a week. But if you're doing those lifts multiple times per week, chances are you're going to have a heavier day and a lighter day. So for example, maybe you're doing like a heavy set of 5 reps on your heavy day, followed by some back down sets of 5. And then maybe on your lighter day, you're doing lighter weights for higher reps, maybe sets of 8 to 10, maybe a number that's based on that heavy set of 5. So whatever you decide to do, keep your heavier day, the number of reps per set, the same over an extended period of time. We would call this more of like a linear approach as opposed to what you might call like an undulated approach. And I love weekly undulation with big, heavier lifts. I do a lot of programming of like 3-week waves where for your squat, bench, and deadlift, you're doing a heavy set of 5 one week, then a heavy set of 4 the next, a heavy set of 3 the third week, and then repeating that cycle. You could do it with any number. You could do 5-4-3, you could do 3-2-1. There's a very famous program called 5-3-1 that has that weekly undulating periodization. But in the case of trying to build up that momentum, sometimes it makes sense to keep things a little bit more linear and keep the rep range the same every week, even keep the RPE the same every week. So when I'm first starting out, maybe I'll set it at sets of 3 at an 8 RPE. It can be whatever you want. That's just an example. But make sure that for at least several weeks in a row, you continue to do a top set of 3 at 8 RPE and just try to add weight to the bar. And if you start light, like I suggested, maybe undershoot the RPE just a little bit and give you a chance to build up week over week. Then you're going to build that momentum, and that progress sometimes is a little bit more tangible than if you're changing the rep range on a weekly basis, where it may be a little bit harder to see that progress and you're only coming back around to the same rep range every so often, usually every 4th week. So I would recommend, if you're trying to build up that momentum in training, keep something fixed within your program where you can just kind of add weight on a linear basis, because it helps you kind of latch on to that progress and see it a little bit more readily. All right, so building momentum in training, hugely important. Start too light. Don't deload just because something says that you're supposed to. Kind of ride that wave of success and keep something the same so you can measure that progress. That momentum can take you a long, long ways. So try to ride it out as long as you can. The longer you train and the older you get, sometimes it's hard to come across these periods of extended successful training. So be grateful when you have it and just ride that wave as long as you can.